People are following what I guess are called best practices. For one, they're probably using a lot of email sequences. The copy is always too long. I'm not going to pay attention to this. We only have one opportunity to make a first impression. Christopherson, he was thinking, I want to collaborate with my hero, Johnny Cash. And it wasn't until he got very audacious and took a big risk by landing a helicopter on his front lawn that it pushed the needle far enough that they made the connection.
This is something that you can take away from this podcast today.
So you don't have to be a cartoonist. You don't have to fly a helicopter. I would do some research, find out something about what their personal interests are and passions are and what they're talking about. Find something that you can use as a gift and send it to them.
Stu, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much. What a pleasure to finally join you.
Thank you for joining us. So we're going to kick off, big open question as we do. Who are you and what problem do you solve?
Well, I'm Stu Heinecke. I'm your guest. Obviously, I guess your audience knows that. But I live in Washington State on an island, a little bit north of Seattle, and I write books, but I also create campaigns. I've been creating campaigns my whole career, and I'm one of the Wall Street Journal cartoonists. So all of those things have combined beautifully. It might sound a little odd, but especially joining cartoons with marketing. But it turned out when I first started out that readership surveys were showing that cartoons were almost always the best read and remembered parts of magazines and newspapers. And I thought, perfect. I love doing them. I was just so interested in it and so involved in it. And great, they're like the ultimate engagement device. So that's in fact right how it went. Created a lot of record-breaking campaigns. I've been nominated to 2 halls of fame for marketing. I've been named the father of contact marketing from my book, How to Get a Meeting with Anyone. You can see it over my shoulder. So I help people. I really just help people get better results, but that takes form with sales reps or with sales teams to help them break through to their top prospects and accounts. And in other forms of campaign, it's just better results, higher response rates, and higher returns on investment. So yeah, that's pretty much it.
Nice. So if we think about maybe the typical salesperson who might be doing all the things wrong. Let's call him Marco for this conversation. So what is Marco doing at his desk every day? What symptoms is he struggling with where you and your books might be able to help him?
Marco, yeah. Well, there are people doing a lot. People are following what I guess are called, not I guess, I know they're called best practices. And a lot of those best practices betray us because, for one, they're probably using a lot of email sequences, and somebody's written it for them, or they wrote it themselves. Somebody's written it for them. The copy is always too long. Nobody's going to read that. They can see the slug at the bottom of the email, and they realize, well, this was just broadcast. I'm not going to pay attention to this. And they think that the key is to keep sending more and more and more of those, but all they're doing is getting more and more ignored and wearing out their welcome more and more and more. So we only have one opportunity to make a first impression. And I always think that it makes so much sense to send something that wows someone, something that maybe is a little audacious, something that causes people to say, well, I mean, if we're interrupting their day, we want them to go from, here's the interruption, and, who's this? What is this? To, oh my God, who is this? This is incredible. I want to meet this person. And so I think in all instances of however we would describe Marco, if he's using sort of traditional best practices, he's not standing out ever because everyone else is using the same thing. That's why they're best practices. So then he's probably never standing out. He's probably never taking the right kinds of risks, and he's probably never getting through. He's probably ready to change his profession.
So, Stu, let's stick on Marco then. Let's say Marco. he's listening to that and he's saying, okay, right, I feel like the cogs are moving, but Stu, I've only got £100. How can I get someone's attention with just £100?
Uh, Send them 100 pounds. That's that might be one way, but that's just kind of a bribe. I would find out as much as I could about each person that you're reaching out to. So, find out what it's pretty easy to do. You can do a profile scrape and go to their profiles on LinkedIn and other social media platforms. Find out something about who they are, where they went to school. That's really basic stuff, but really it's more like, what are they talking about? Are they posting about anything? What are their stances? What are they really excited about? And you can go much deeper than that. ChatGPT will help you go much deeper than that, to just get research on the person and find out who they are as people. Because you might find that someone is, I don't know, they're really interested in airplanes. And then, doing something with an airplane or an airplane theme would make some sense. Or, you might buy an out of date or out of print book, maybe an antique book on airplanes, maybe something sort of historic. I don't know, something about airplanes. Send it to them as a gift, and you could buy something off Amazon, something used, and send something that's relevant to who they are, what they're excited about, that they love the Tour de France race. Get them something about that, and say, I was doing research on you, and because I wanted to ask you for a meeting, and I discovered that you were really interested in the Tour de France, and I just happen to have this book. It's actually out of print now, but it's about the first 10 races. And I thought you might enjoy that. And really, I hope it might earn me the chance to talk to you for a few minutes. I would do something like that. Show them that you've actually done some work. The other thing is that we have to have relevance. You can't you could fire up a flare gun at their window and get their attention too, but there's no relevance to it. So, you really need to know why the reason that you'd like to get in touch with them is relevant to them, or how it's relevant to them. So are they, I don't know. And again, I don't know what does Marco sell? Maybe we should find out a little bit more about him.
I don't think he knows.
Okay. Well, then he's going to have a really hard time. Should find that out too. But, understand how your solution fits in with them. What kinds of problems are they experiencing that you actually know that they're experiencing? And how can your solution help? You really ought to come in with that kind of relevance.
Is there then, I'm going to maybe thinking devil's advocate standpoint here, is there a sweet spot and a boundary between? So I could do lots of research on you, Stu, and I could fire over some personalized outreach that is suddenly about what school you went to and the street you live on, and and suddenly it gets kind of creepy. But is there a fine line of linking it to?
If I live on Amble Road on an island, and if someone sent me, actually, if they even sent something here, I'd be a little nonplussed. I don't want to receive things here. But I don't have any affinity to my road, the road I live on, or really even where I went to school. It was so long. I do have some, but it was a great place to go to school, but it was a long time ago. And so if I got a mug, I went to USC. So if I got a USC mug, well, I don't know. I can get those myself. I don't get them because I don't really care that much. But if you delved a little bit if you delved into my profile a bit, just into some of my posts, you'll find that I'm really very, very interested in bodybuilding. I mean, I've been working hard. I've been working out hard to get into bodybuilder shape by my 70th birthday, which just was a few months ago. That's kind of an odd thing. Most people my age are not doing that. And so that would be a great way to reach across the divide and say, hey, I saw your post, and I'm either I have a question because I would love to do the same thing, or congratulations. I mean, I think you're the oldest. I probably wouldn't like to hear I'm the oldest one that they've seen, but whatever. It's okay. I'm working on a new book called Playing Your Fourth Quarter. If you knew that, boom. I mean, these are great ways to break through. So, I mean, mentioning my road won't do it, but mentioning Playing Your Fourth Quarter surely would. If you're in sort of like in that fourth quarter of your life and you're curious about that, I would be going, oh yeah, sure. Let's talk about it. So it's much, do you see the difference? And so we're still not talking about what Marco sells, but he'd be a lot smoother on the on his outreach if he was able to dip into those things. Or I mean, the book Over My Shoulder, How to Get a Meeting with Anyone. It was named. Let's see, Harris. I don't think I pronounced his last name, but he's the publisher of Sales Daily. He named How to Get a Meeting with Anyone the #1 sales book ever written on prospecting. And that was just last year. And I'm like, wow, okay, I know it's not true. It can't be true, but I'll take it. That's great. So, I mean, if you know things like that, then, and they're not hard to find out, then I think it makes it easy to reach across. I connect with people all the time because of that.
I think where it goes wrong is where, and this is going to sound so stupid, but when personalization is done en masse, I think that's where people struggle.
I was creating direct mail. That's how I started. Was I created direct mail campaigns that used cartoons with personalization. So the cartoon was always personalized about the recipient. And we were let's say reaching toward a persona. We knew for Forbes magazine, we knew that the audience was the people in the audience were probably at least stock investors, but they were investors and keenly interested in business and certainly their own business success. So that's a really easy persona to play to with a cartoon. And so we would send out these mailings that were, again, they're about the recipient. I mean, there's a cartoon on the front of the envelope, and it's about the recipient only by dropping in first and last name. But we'd sent a couple million of those out, and it ended up setting new records for response. So I don't think it's that. I don't think it's not. I mean, personalization at scale is not the problem. It's just poor or weak personalization that I think really where it really falls apart. Does that make sense? I think there's a big distinction there.
Yeah, definitely. I think when I think of personalization en masse, I think like what you say there is like knowing a persona and doing something personalized to that persona. But let me just share this.
Yeah, sure.
I'll share a DM with you that I got 30 minutes ago, and this is personalization. Hi Jack, I see your director at We Have a Meeting. That is personalization, but that is weak, as we know.
Totally weak. Yeah.
But I love your work. So what I wanted to get into is obviously getting the meeting is one thing, and then approaching that meeting, and there's probably like a level of reciprocity. If you've done something that's bodacious, it stands out, it's got my attention, okay, cool, you've gone to that effort, I'm going to give my time and effort back to you. But that doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to buy, of course. But how have you found any ways to that line between that transition period of how to approach those meetings differently because you've done something that's probably a bit more disruptive?
That's a tangle of things together. My first and foremost objective for clients is to get them in, just to get them talking with the prospect, and not so much carrying them through the meeting or through the sale, because that's a lot of other areas of expertise that'll make that happen. But we know that if you have a solution that makes sense that they're not using now, they're not using your competitor's version of it, or maybe they are, and the competitor's version is weak, and you can talk about why it's weak and how you can create a benefit to them. But I will just tell you that my objective is to get you in touch with the person in such a way that, as I mentioned earlier, they're saying, "Oh my God, who is this? This is amazing." And so there are some great stories of things that people have done to make that happen. And when that happens, I think that when it's actually, that could be the whole feature of the meeting and the transaction. They just really admire you for what you just did or what you showed them. and they'll end up that'll carry it through a lot of the process of. I mean, if we know that people buy from people they know, like, and trust. They don't know you, then they like you probably. They probably like you a lot. That's probably what's happening. And there has to be some amount of implied trust, but they don't know you. So when you first connect, that's the situation. So you really have to. I guess you probably have to turn up like a lot. And there are really interesting ways of doing that using contact. I call it contact marketing in my books, and that's sort of what it's being called now. But there are ways to turn up the like portion of that equation so that they're just saying, look, I don't know who you are, but I really like the way you think. And I want to know, I want to know what you sell, why you reached out, and let's figure that out, because I really like the way you think. And I think that belongs in my sphere. Does that make sense?
Perfectly.
Yeah, I mean, I could share. Would you like me to share a story or two? Because
I was actually just going to say, what's your Sweet Child of Mine campaign? The one that's the hit that gets the wins every time.
Well, I mean, I use cartoons all the time. I still use them. I mean, I use them in the mailings, but I realized I discovered very quickly that if I sent a cartoon to someone, and I'm one of the Wall Street Journal cartoonists, that helps. I mean, I'm known as a cartoonist here, so. But if I send them a cartoon about themselves, it's treasured, and it better be funny. Let's hope it's funny, but and on target. But otherwise, it's treasured. So and people aren't going to throw them away. And I use them all the time in a lot of different forms. But when I did the research for how to get a meeting with anyone, the wonderful thing the best part of that, I should say, is that I was discovering all these really crazy, clever, audacious things that people were doing to break through to someone who was very difficult to reach. Maybe we would call them impossible to reach. But when they did that, things changed for them drastically. And so I've got a bunch of stories like this, but if I may, I'd love to share one with you now.
Please.
Sounds good. Do you remember the singer-songwriter Chris Christopherson?
I don't think I do. What was he, in a band, or was he?
He was a country singer-songwriter. He used to perform with Johnny Cash and
Oh wow,
Alan Jennings. So from that ilk, but he was. His story starts when he was, I guess, a captain in the Army, and he was a pilot, helicopter pilot, and he was stationed in Germany. And he was thinking, well, when I get out of the service, what am I going to do? What do I really want to do? I know what I want to do. I want to become a singer-songwriter, and in fact, I want to move to Nashville, and I want to collaborate with my hero Johnny Cash, and that wouldn't be easy, right? That doesn't, especially now he's dead, but otherwise, it wouldn't be easy. It would not be easy to get through to. So we thought, okay, good. And so when he was discharged, he moved to Nashville. And a friend of his knew that he wanted to meet Johnny. So he said, look, he's going to perform at our venue tonight, and I can get you in. If you come to the stage door at 10:30 tonight, I'll let you in, and I'll introduce you. Oh, man. All right. So showed up, and there was Johnny. He was ready to go on stage. He was like pointed toward the stage, ready to go. And the stage manager tapped him on the shoulder and said, "Hey, Johnny, I just want to introduce you to my friend here, Chris." And he turns and said, "Hey, how you doing?" or something like that. I don't know. And then went on stage. So not much of an impact. And so they thought, okay, all right. I got to do something more. I'm going to go to the studio where he records, and he spends this all day long, all the time. And I'm just going to get any job I can get. And so he got a job as a janitor. By the way, he's a Rhodes Scholar, or was a Rhodes Scholar. So he was way overqualified for this, but he got the job as a janitor. And sure enough, he started to get to know Johnny a little bit, but Johnny knew him as a janitor. He's not going to collaborate with the janitor. And so finally, Chris, he just thought, I've got to do something to break through this. And so he was still flying helicopters now for the National Guard. And so while he was on a training mission, I guess, something like that, he decided, okay, on my way back, I'm going to stop over at Johnny's house, land on the front lawn, and hand off a demo tape. And that certainly would have got, well, anyway, so that's what he did. Showed up at the house in the helicopter. And then there's the stories diverge from here, whether Johnny tells it or Chris tells it. So Chris is saying, I handed it off to the house manager. He came out, was wondering why a helicopter was there on the front lawn. We've handed it to him. And then Johnny would tell a different story. He said, let me tell you about how I met Chris. He flew, well, he was our janitor, but then one day he just showed up in a helicopter and he stepped out with a beer in one hand and a demo tape in the other. And Chris is saying, no, Johnny, I can't, there's no cup holders in the helicopter, and you can't, I need everything. I both hands and both feet to fly a helicopter. But what was really interesting about that, they became, from that point on, lifelong friends. Johnny helped him a lot, brought him into the Highwaymen, this band of legendary country singers. And the thing that I love about that story is that Chris was trying these different methods. And you could say that having a friend backstage who could make an introduction was sort of like best practices, not enough to move the needle. Right? I mean, it just wasn't enough. It made no impression whatsoever. You could liken those to email sequences. Email sequences. And so then he thought, okay, fine, I'm going to turn it up a notch, and became the janitor. Well, just got any job just so he could be near Johnny and get to know him that way. But that wasn't enough. It didn't position him properly. And it wasn't until he got very audacious and took a big risk by landing a helicopter on his front lawn that it pushed the needle far enough that they made the connection. And I think this happens in outreach all the time. We do things that are not, they don't show up. They blend into everything else. If we're trying to just connect through LinkedIn, if we send DMs, and I think that DM you were talking about earlier, Jack, was that on LinkedIn? Yeah, we'll talk about those in a moment, I hope, because they're horrible. They're so horribly done. But those things don't generally create much of an impact. And it's not until you turn it up, turn that knob way up, the audacity knob, way up until you can actually just break through the clutter, break through, I don't know, resistance perhaps, but so that you can make enough of an impression that they're saying, wow. Well, in this case, Johnny knew who he was. I'm not saying I don't know who this is, but I love the way Chris thinks. We got to do something together. And that's when everything changes.
So what's an example of a time where you walked the line and did that yourself?
Well,
I did that.
Well, I have to preface this by saying not all meetings are business. So
okay.
I guess, I saw my wife in a magazine and wrote to the magazine and said, I'm working on a film project. I want to get introduced to this model. I don't know who she is, but could you help? And they wrote back and said, well, her name is Charlotte. She lives in Copenhagen. We don't know if she speaks a word of English. Here's her photographer's name and number. Good luck. And obviously I'm telling you, she's my wife. So that worked. That's my best meeting ever. And I went to Copenhagen to meet her, and we spent the day together, and that was amazing. That's my best meeting by far.
Oh, wow.
But for business, if we should refocus again. I've sent cartoons to presidents, so U.S. presidents and prime ministers, and lots of CEOs and C-level people and top decision makers, and broken through a lot of the time. There was one radio host, and we're in completely different markets, so I don't think you'll know who he is, but he was very, very popular across the country, and just a big name. And he was having he was in the Los Angeles market where I was living, and so I would listen to him. He was funny, really was funny as hell, and so I loved his humor, and so I was listening to him, and he was having sort of a feud with one of his sponsors who pulled out, and so I created a cartoon and sent it over to him at Kiss Studios in Hollywood. And he called me up and said, hey, come on in, let's meet. And he's been my client ever since. I've been creating his Christmas card every year with these personalized cartoons. And we've been doing that for about 40 years now. So that was kind of interesting. But I don't know. I broke it through to a lot of people and gotten a lot of things to happen. And it usually follows this impression that I've made, either because they might recognize my cartooning style. I don't know, but I think there's the impression that, oh my gosh, I've seen this guy's work all over the place, and here's this one coming. I'm hearing from him, so I get through a lot because of that. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, definitely.
Probably answered it in a way you never expected, but that's good.
I love the story about how you met your wife as well. That's beautiful. When you think about sending cartoons and this content marketing, how are you approaching the copy or maybe the ask of the next steps? How are you thinking about that?
Well, I mean, I often will send something, and then my first follow-up is, "Did you get it?" Just something very simple. And my goal again is just I want to start a conversation. And so if they got the piece that I sent, they're usually not saying, "Yeah, I got it." That's it. It's a dead end. But they're usually saying, "Yeah, I got it. I showed her, and we love it, actually." "Oh, great. Well, if I could, I'll tell you why I sent it to you." Or actually, I probably did tell him anyway why I sent it to him. But I think we have an opportunity to collaborate or to work together, and I'd love to explore that with you. Could we spend a few moments doing that? And so it's a very easy conversation. But I just generally ask for, my first ask is, "Did you get it?"
Nice. And then, Stu, it felt earlier like there was a gripe with LinkedIn copywriting messages.
Yeah.
Tell me everything.
Well, the one that you just read a few moments ago, at least they caught your name, and I see your director. They knew a little bit about who you were. So they looked at your profile, at least briefly. A lot of them don't even do that. They will, I don't know. I think they all copied and pasted the same copy, and it's, "Hey, I see that we were connected to a lot of the same people, and I'd really love to find out more about what you do." Are you kidding? You don't know what I do? Why are you reaching out? And it's really easy to know that if they'd said, on the contrary, if they'd said, "Hey, Stu, I just bought your book. Just wanted to say thank you," I'll respond right away because I'm thankful, But if it's just, "Hey, listen, I know, I see we're connected to a lot of the same people," I don't care. That doesn't say anything. All it says is you're lazy and you didn't do any homework. You just sent this to everyone. So because it's probably not likely that we're connected to the same people. It's just a lie, and not a great way to start out a conversation or a relationship.
So, Stu, if I say weed growth, and I'm thinking in your world, what am I referring to for our listeners?
Well, I wrote another book called "How to Grow Your Business Like a Weed," and I did that because I'll just call it, I'm a big fan of weeds because of their mode of growth. They just keep going. I mean, they don't stop. They're perseverant. They have all sorts of. Well, I guess I could just describe it this way. They deal with what is. I mean, that's sort of part of they have a very matter-of-fact mindset, and it's always on go, go, go. But so they deal with what is. We don't. We let our emotions get in the way. "Oh my gosh, I should have gotten this deal, and now I'm going to sulk about it." It's going to discourage me or something like that. They just deal with what is and move on. And they never do anything without an unfair advantage. Everything about them gives unfair advantage to them taking over turf. They never do anything alone. It's always at scale. They never do it. They don't. If you have a dandelion that shows up in your lawn, look up and you'll see at least dozens more, if not hundreds more. Hopefully not, but you'll see more than just one. They never show up alone, and they always focus on what makes them win, which is really their process, their evolutionary process. But they're always focused on what makes them win. So they're very efficient at winning. And finally, they thrive best in disrupted ground. They love disruption. I mean, that's where that's their element. And we should be doing that too. We are seeing a lot of disruption, but we'll see a lot more of it if predictions come true about AI, about how that's going to upend all sorts of job markets. Recessions are obviously those can play into those circumstances as well. I mean, we have to be ready for these disruptions, but not just ready. We need to be ready to thrive in them. So how do we do that? And so all of that really portends this very interesting body of growth strategy that has been inspired by weeds, and that's what the book's about.
Can you think of maybe a good example for the listeners of a business that behaved like a weed?
Yeah, I think Amazon is a perfect example. They're everywhere. They're ubiquitous. And of course they're at huge scale now, but they built that scale by teaming with. I'm pretty sure. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure that they're the ones that invented affiliate marketing, and so that created an enormous spread. And then they collaborated with shop owners and brands who make their homes on Amazon as well. I mean, they've spread into everything everywhere, and they have created a lot of unfair advantages. I think one of them is one-click checkout. I'm pretty sure that they have a patent on that. Basically, you can buy anything from Amazon, and then also you can get free shipping, and it gets there within 2 days. Nobody's competing well with that. So they have a lot of unfair advantages, and they've created a lot of scale, and they're aggressive as hell. I would say that's a great example.
So, Stu, I'm thinking about the time and the effort that it takes you when you're thinking about these cartoons. I'm thinking finding the people, thinking about the idea, creating it, packaging it, sending it, and then you might tell me I'm wrong, but I'm guessing you don't have 100% success rate of people responding positively. I'm sure that people ignore it, people slip through the net. Is that the case? Are there people that...
I don't get 100% response rate all the time. No, not at all. And I would never represent it that way. But it's the only form. I'm just going to talk about contact marketing in general. That it's the only form of marketing I know that even achieves 100% response rates. And in fact, the record that I'm aware of, so let's say my own personal record in terms of my research, is somewhere between 300 and 400% response. So what that meant was that was a little campaign, something that the device that we used in the campaign was so compelling that people would keep it in their pocket and they'd show it to people and share it. And it was something that the people who were shown were going, that's incredible. That's incredibly clever. Can I get this person's name and number? And so they would, every time it was a business card. I'll just explain what it is. It's a business card that was printed on a stretched piece of rubber. So it was placed on a jig, stretched, and then printed. And then when the ink cured and dried, they'd take it off the jig and then everything would squeeze down together all the printing would squeeze down like a deflated balloon, but you couldn't read it until you stretched it. And when you stretched it, it revealed it's Paul Nielsen's card. He's a fitness trainer. And guess what? He already has you exercising.
Wow.
So people loved it so much. They were showing it around. And of course, other people are saying, you know what? I want to work out with this guy. And so he said every time he handed one of those out, he'd get 3 or 4 clients. He'd actually get 3 or 4 clients from his card. So, but there are a lot of instances of 100% response rates, but it's the only form of marketing I've ever heard of that ever reaches 100% in response. But you shouldn't expect 100%. And when I have clients, I never tell them, okay, let's expect 100%. I'm just saying I think we should be able to adjust the campaign and refine it as we go. And so you should be able to get pretty close to that, because if they don't respond to the first thing, send another one and another thing and another thing. And you should expect to reach 100%. I think that's actually a real goal, but you might start out at 10%. I don't know. Now, you asked a different question, though, also about the cartoons, and I'm creating new cartoons for each campaign, perhaps, or each person, and that's not what I'm doing. I have an image bank of about 1,600 cartoons now that are all personalized. So I generally use one of the, or a few of the best of that crop, the cream of the crop. And those are the ones that I use quite frequently, and they're quite well proven. But it's still, someone can resist. In fact, if they know that I'm the author of How to Get a Meeting with Anyone, I think I probably get a lot more resistance than everyone else, because they're thinking, well, don't think you can get through to me just because you wrote the book. But I do get through to people a lot. But again, I would never say, though, that this is a form of marketing, and my cartoons being a form of contact marketing, where you should expect 100% response rate. We may get it, and I've gotten it, but that's not going to. That's a very unusual occurrence in marketing in general. Actually, it's impossible with other forms of marketing, but it's still a rare occurrence in contact marketing too. Not every time.
So if we go back to the beginning of the conversation, we were talking about Marco, and obviously it's 2025. AI's poor Marco.
Yeah.
AI is coming in. It's getting scary. It's getting harder for salespeople all over the world. And I'm going to make it worse for Marco. He's actually got no hand, so he can't draw. He's not a good drawer. I was going to say he's bad at drawing, but I'm going to take his hand away.
Yeah, I don't expect anyone to say, okay, I'll become a cartoonist. I've been at it my whole life, and I've been mentored by some of the best cartoonists in the world. I wouldn't be, the message you shouldn't take from this is not, it isn't become a cartoonist. It's do something to stand out. And there are a lot of ways to stand out. But to try to become a cartoonist would be that's not what I'm suggesting.
Well, I was going to say, for Marco, who can't be a cartoonist, what's one idea or one thing that you're like, you know what, if you want to try something low stakes, you want to go and get a meeting with somebody that you've always wanted to get, why don't you try this? Why don't you try that? This is something that you can take away from this podcast today, and you can implement straight away. What advice would you give for Marco?
Well, I actually mentioned it at the beginning of our conversation, but I would do some research, find out something about the person, something about what their personal interests are and passions are, and what they're talking about, but especially their personal interests, and then find something that you can use as a gift. And as I mentioned at that earlier time, find a book on Amazon. Find a book, a used book, maybe an out of print book on eBay, and I think that's a really cool kind of gift. Receive it. Don't send it from eBay to them, or from the eBay, whoever's on eBay selling it. Receive the gift, wrap it in some nice brown craft paper, or maybe put a twine around it, just because you want it to look like it was done by hand. So add those elements to it, and send it to them with a note saying, hey, I was doing some research because I wanted to reach out, I wanted to get a few minutes of your time, and I noticed that you were interested in X, Y, or Z, whatever it is. And I thought, oh my God, I know about this. I saw this book, it was for sale, and I had to get it for you. Well, I hope you enjoy it, and I hope it has earned me maybe a few minutes of your time. That's what I would do. So you don't have to be a cartoonist. You don't have to fly a helicopter, You don't have $10,000 swords, whatever. You can do things very, very inexpensively and have a lot of impact with it.
I love this. Is there anyone that you're still trying to get a meeting with after all these years, Stu?
I usually do. Well, I either get through them or I don't. If they don't want to meet, I'm fine with it. I don't care. I'll meet someone else. There are a lot of people out there. But I did just reach out to Bjorn Ulvaeus of ABBA. And
wow.
I got through to his publicist. His publicist pitched my interview request, because I want to interview him for my next book, and it would be fun to interview him. So I don't know. I might try a few more times, but he's a very busy guy, and he either wants to do it or he doesn't. And she pitched it to him, and he said, no, I don't think so. So I'll do it or I won't. It doesn't matter. I'll get through to someone else, Mick Jagger, or, there are a lot of people out there. I don't know. I can't think of anyone that I've just thought, oh, I really needed to get through to them and I didn't get through to them. I've gotten through to amazing people and had amazing, either conversation, because I use this also for getting interviews for my books. So either amazing interviews or amazing business results, and it just continues on.
Brilliant. Stu, thank you so much. I love this. And I think I hope Marco is listening, because I think this is a massively
massive for Marco
episode.
Yeah. Marco would do well to listen.
Exactly. Thank you so much, Stu. If people want to get in contact with you, check out your work or buy your book, how can they go about that?
Well, sure. We were just talking about LinkedIn. Go to LinkedIn, and if you know how to spell my name, you can find me there. And just mention in your DM or in your outreach that you heard me on Jack's podcast, and I'm happy to jump in with you. If you send a generic thing, I probably won't.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Stu.
Thank you so much,
Thanks,
Jeff.
Stu.